Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sachin Goswami. If you read me loud and clear, please say yes on the chat. Okay, let's start with that. In this webinar, we'll be talking about how to go about it, how to become a project management professional, and I'll be taking you through that. Okay, so let's start with the agenda here for today. We're going to be talking about all things about project management, ranging from what is a project. So we're going to start with that. And then we'll be talking about what is project management, what is the project management professional certification course, and who is a project manager, what are the roles and responsibilities of a project manager, the PMP eligibility. Now that's one key point that I've seen a lot of people asking me questions about, the PMP certification cost. And then we'll also be talking about how the PMP will help you upgrade your career and why the organizations prefer the PMP certified professionals. So these are the things on the agenda today. So let's get it started, ladies and gentlemen. So let's start with what is a project. Okay, now, so we all work on projects, right? So, and I'm hoping that most of you who are attending this webinar today, you want to go up and you want to start your career in project management, or you are already a project manager and want to go ahead with the certification, right? So I'm expecting that most of us are already working in projects. So when it comes to the projects, if you go with the definition, the project is said to be a temporary endeavor which is undertaken in order to create a unique product, service, or result. Just like for an example, if we take an example here, just like a building, right? The building, that's a project. Why? Because that's a temporary endeavor, so it would have a start date and a finish date, right? That means the duration. So it would have a duration from the start to finish, and that would give us a product, just like building is a product. Now, if we talk about some other projects, just like say a telecom company who provides you the services, right? So all of their projects will be called as service projects, right? And then you may have a research company who provides you with the results. Just like if I'm doing a political research, or if I'm doing a research on, say, a new bridge in a rural area, right? Now, all of these things, COVID-19 is a fantastic example of that. So there are a lot of these medical companies who are doing research on the vaccine nowadays, right? So all of these projects will give us the results. So any project that you take up, which is which has a start date and a finish date, can give you only three outputs, right? Either it gives you a product or a service or a result. No fourth thing, right? Now, this is what a project would mean. Now, we all are working on projects, right? So I'm pretty sure about all of you, or at least most of us are working on projects here. So that's the definition. This is what the PMI says about the projects. Now, before we talk about what PMI is or what PMP is, there are certain things that I want to discuss with you. You see, there are a lot of people who would prefer to do the PMP certification because they want to have a certificate which can give them growth in their organization, in their current role, or if they want to move up into the vertical of the project management, right? So generally, these are the target objectives of any PMP aspirant, right? But certification is one part of it, so I agree with that. Once you move into the industry, then what happens? That's where you would appreciate the learning of that course that you just went through. Just like for an example, I gave training to one participant who was from Saudi Arabia, right? Now he went ahead, he became a certified PMP. Now, after a couple of months, he called me up and he said, Sachin, we need your help, right? And could you come down here in Riyadh? So I went there and I asked him, okay, so what's wrong? And he said everything. He literally said everything, right? And I said, okay, so let's start with that. Let's because I run a consulting company, so that's my job to help people in their projects, right? So when we went to that discussion, I realized that this gentleman, quote unquote, certified PMP, all right, this gentleman had a project which was behind the schedule, ahead on the cost, right? No tracking of the scope changes, right? And when we started discussing, I realized that he don't have a risk register, he don't have an issue log, he don't have a change log. What all he has was a project management plan, which was not updated from the last 3 weeks, right? Now, that's where I keep asking my participants, okay, so what is your target? Is your target is to become a certified PMP so that it can give you the growth in your current position? Or you are doing it because you really want to learn these practices, these processes, which will help you in becoming a better project manager. All right. So I believe the second part is more important than the first part. And that's what was lacking with this gentleman from Riyadh. All right. So he was a certified PMP, but he was not using the practices which we talked about during the classroom training, right? And that's where the problem starts, right? So all of you people who want to be certified PMPs, who want to be the professionals, who want to be project managers, please keep in mind, certification is one part. The other part is learning, right? And our focus should be on that learning. And once you get to know these processes, once you get to know these practices, right? Try and implement those things so that they can help you in your real life projects, in your real life scenarios. Otherwise, all of these things that we're going to talk about will be limited just to get a certification and nothing else. So that's going to be my advice to you. So that's where I come back to the project. So as I said, the project is a temporary endeavor that is undertaken to produce a unique product or a solution. So the solution can be services, that can be a result, any solution that you provide. So that's the definition of the project, ladies and gentlemen. Now, when it comes to the projects are in all the domains that we see, right? So there are projects in the information technology, there are projects in infrastructures, there are projects, the sports projects that happens. In fact, I'll give you one very good example here. You heard about the IPLs, guys, the Indian Premier League. So I've been working as the project manager for one of the IPL franchise. The name of the franchise is called Kata Knight Riders, right? And I was their project manager for 3 seasons. Now that's a sports project, and people would wonder that what a project manager will do in a sports project, right? So what's going to be your role? So trust you me, uh, project management is required in all the projects that we do, regardless to what domain it is of, from what technology it is. In every single project you would need a project manager, right? And that's the beauty of the project management. The project management is not domain specific. So I comes from an electronics background, and I've been doing the projects in all the domains. So what you need to know here as a project manager, you need to know the framework. So once you understand that framework of the project management, you'll be able to apply that in any project, right? So that's one big advantage of doing the PMP certification, because the PMP certification will give you that framework and the utilization, that how you're going to utilize that framework, right? So once you learn that, it's your will that in what domain you want to implement that. So that's the best part about the PMP certifications here. Okay, coming back to the projects. So a project, as I said, is a temporary endeavor, just like it can be, as small as making a cup of tea. So when you make a cup of tea, that is again a project, right? Why? Because for making a cup of tea, that's a temporary endeavor. So that has a start, that has a finish, all right? So that's 20 minutes, 15 minutes of duration, right? So it has a start date, it has a finish date, and then it has a unique product, service, or result. So what a cup of tea would give you is a product, right? Now that product itself is a very unique product. So you may have seen similar ones, but it is almost impossible to have the same, all right? So that's why I would say even making a cup of tea would be a project. So anything which is temporary and which gives us a unique product would be called as a project. Now, coming back to what is project management? What is that? Let's talk about project management for a moment here. Now, there is a definition which is as per the Project Management Institute, and then there's a perception that the people carry. So what people think about what a project management is and against what it actually is. Let's talk about these two things. So let's start with the misconception. Let's talk about what people think what project management is. Now, the people think that the project management is an art of creating an illusion that every project or every result is basically a combination of predetermined events, whereas it was just the dumb luck. Just think about it. Now, that's what people, when I say people, so that a lot of people, in fact, whenever I talk to somebody and I said, okay, so define project management, or when I go as a consultant and start working in a project, right? People keep asking me this question, and trust you me, you're gonna hear this question a lot of times in your project management career. Now, you know what that question is? The question is, okay, Sachin, so what you exactly do as a project manager? Just think about it, right? So they're going to ask you this question, and you're going to hear that multiple times in your career. Okay, Sachin, so what's your role? What do you do, right? Because they believe that project management is all about creating that illusion that every outcome is a result of a predetermined deliberate acts, whereas it was just the dumb luck. So they think that just like the project manager is just a lucky guy, and he gives us an illusion that everything is happening because of him, right? So that's not true at all, right? So what is true? What is the project management? Let's talk about that for a moment here. When it comes to the project management, now there's a wonderful thing which you see on the screen right now. It says operations keeps the lights on, strategy provides a light at the end of the tunnel, but the project management is the train engine that moves the organization forward. Fantastic. Now, if we talk about PMI, we'll come back to what PMI is, what is the origin, what PMP is, right? So we'll be coming back to that in just a moment. But what the PMI says that the project management is a combination of your skills, tools, and techniques to all the project activities in order to meet or exceed stakeholders' needs and expectations. So that is what the PMI says about the project management. So they says that it is a combination of your skills, tools, techniques, right, and knowledge to all the project activities. You see, in a project, so say I'm developing a software, right? Now there would be a lot of these specific actions that I have to perform in order to achieve those deliverables that I need for that particular project, right? Now all of these activities, right, how I would fulfill those activities, and in turn, how I would fulfill the needs and the expectations of the stakeholders, right? Now, this art would come under the project management. So that's the engine that moves the entire organization forward. So you would have the strategy in place, you would have the operations that would help you in taking that strategy ahead. But until and unless you have project management in place, so you don't have that engine. So until unless you have that engine, you will not be able to move your organization forward, right? So this is how the project management is defined. Significance. So what is the significance of the project management? So why we should implement project management? The first part is about planning, risk identification, and mitigation steps. Now, if you do not have that project management quotient available, you'll not be able to plan properly, you'll not be able to identify the risk, you'll not be able to take the mitigation steps if the risk occurs, right? Now, all of these things will go back into the project management part because the operations would not focus on planning and risk identification. So that's going to be your part as a project manager, right? Effective communication and the stakeholder identification. Then you would have then defining the roles and the responsibilities of the project teammates, of the other stakeholders in the project, defining the scope, the timelines, the cost that you need in order to carry out the project work, right? All of these things would come under the project management. So as I said, that's going to be a combination of your knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to all the activities in order to fulfill the requirements, the needs and the requirements of the project stakeholders. So that's how we define the project management, ladies and gentlemen. Moving ahead to what is PMP. Now, that's where the big question is. What is PMP? Now, if I tell you about PMP, the PMP is one of the most recognized project management credential in the world. And trust you me, ladies and gentlemen, I've been traveling. So I've been doing projects in about 28 different countries so far, right? And I realized this, that when it comes to the PMP, this is one of the most recognized things in the world, right? So everybody knows who a PMP is, who a certified professional is, right? There are other certification programs as well, not naming any of those, but there are those, philosophies, there are those credentials, right? But when it comes to the PMP is way ahead, right? And now in 2021, I don't know if you know about it, but the PMI came up with a very unique concept now. So initially they were focusing only on the project management part, all right? Now the PMI has changed their stance, and they came up with the new domains of the projects, right? Now, what are those new domains? So we have three different domains now in project management. We call them the people, then we have the process, and then we have the business environment. So these are the three different domains that the PMI came up for the PMP certification in 2021. So the people is all about stakeholders, right? Their needs, their expectations, how you're going to manage their needs, how you're going to manage their expectations, how you're going to keep up with those expectations, how you're going to manage the transition, how you're going to communicate with the stakeholders. All of these things would come under how you're going to develop a team, how you're going to onboard a team. So all of these things would come under the people section. Now, in the certification examination, the people domain would carry 42% weightage. Just think about it, almost half the weightage, right? So 42% weightage is given to the people management, right? Then you have the processes. Processes are those technical processes that you have to apply, just like how do we prepare the schedule and how do we determine the requirements, how do we gather the requirements, how do we define the scope, how do we validate the scope, how do we identify the risk, how do we do the qualitative risk analysis, quantification, how you plan the risk responses, how you make your communication management plan, how you conduct the procurement, and I can go on and on. Now, these are all the processes in project management, right? So the 50% weightage is given to the processes in the new 2021 format, right? And then comes the business. So that talks about the basic business acumen. So your basic understanding about how good you are or how good you understand the business of the organization and how aligned are your project objectives with the organizational objectives, right? So the strategy level, right? So 8% weightage is given to the business environment. So these are the new domains in the PMP now. But before we talk about those, let's go and talk about what PMP is first, and then we'll have a further discussion on that. So let's start with what is PMP. So if we talk about PMP certification program, the PMP stands for the Project Management Professional. So as I said earlier, it is a globally acknowledged professional certification program in the project management that legalizes a professional education, experience, skills, and competency that is required to lead and direct the project. So as I said, this is one of the most famous or the most recognized credential in the world when it comes to the project management professionals. If you talk about further in terms of the PMP, how this certification program defines who is a project manager. So how do they define that what a project manager is? Now, what's going to be the role and what are the roles and responsibilities of a project manager? What are those jobs that he'll be performing? So that means all in all, we are talking about who you will be in the future, right? So what's going to be your role in the projects? How you're going to take it up, right? So let's talk about who is a project manager. So if we talk about project manager, the project managers are the ones who ensure that the entire process of project management flows in a controlled manner. Now, what is the process of the project management? The process of the project management is, again, as I said, divided into three different areas: the people, the processes, and the business environment. So all the processes inside people management, the leadership, all right, and all the processes which are inside the technical project management, the process group itself, and then the processes which are defined inside the business environment. How you're gonna run those, how you're gonna run those processes or the flow of these processes in a controlled manner. So the person who does that would be known as the project manager. So that's going to be your future position. And I may hope that or I'm just assuming that a few of you are already project managers here, and there would be a lot of these who aspires to be a project manager. So what you're going to be, you're going to be a person who's going to ensure that the entire process of project management flows in a controlled manner. So that's what you're going to be. Then comes what's going to be your role and what are the responsibilities that you need to take on, right? So what's going to be your role as a project manager, the things that you would do in a project, right? So let's talk about them as well, real quick right here. So the project management roles and responsibilities, let's start with that. So what are going to be your roles? Okay, So in general, if we talk about what a project manager would do, a project manager is that driving force who makes sure that all the processes are in place and we are following all the best practices defined in the PMBOK, right? So this person, so the project manager will be responsible for making sure that this is implemented, that the processes are implemented, and the good practices are implemented. So if you talk about a few of these, the first one is the planning, of course. So you have to plan for all the activities, all the deliverables, all the work packages. You have to define the WBS. You're gonna, collect the requirements from the customer or the other stakeholders in the project. So all things which comes under planning would be your role. That would be your responsibility, right? Then comes the leadership. So as I said, people, process, and the business environment. So leadership is a very critical skill when it comes to the people management part, because you see, uh, you know, uh, in general life, you might have realized that at least in today's world and era, right, you cannot push someone or you cannot force someone, right, to do the task to do certain jobs in the project, right? You can only use your leadership skills to influence people, right, to do those jobs. Now when it comes to leadership, the PMI has given more weightage to the leadership rather than the management. In fact, if you go through the PMBOK, you can see there is a very good slide about the differences between the project leadership and the project manager, right? So what a leader would do versus what a manager would do, all right? So the PMI says that you need to be a good leader in order to be a good project manager, all right? So that's going to be, again, to lead the team, to communicate with the stakeholders. All of these would come under your responsibilities. Then you have the time management, the schedule, right? When the project starts and when the project finishes, how many deliverables that we need to achieve, what are those activities that we need to fulfill in order to achieve those deliverables, what's going to be the start date of that activity, what's going to be the finish date of that activity, how these activities will be sequenced, so what's going to be the chronology, the chronological order of these activities. All of these things are going to be your responsibility. So you'll be the one who'll sit with the team and who'll define the WBS, who'll define the deliverables, who would define those activities, who would define the sequence, who would define those durations. So all the time management that, when this activity is supposed to be finishing and when we actually finished it, what's the variance, why the variance is there, what we can do in order to cope up with that. All of these things going to be under your responsibility as a project manager. So that's going to be one crucial element. Then you have the budget planning. So that is where we come down to the cost. All right. So if you talk about the triple constraint theorem, as for that, you have the time, cost, and scope, right? And all three of these are your responsibilities. Now, okay. So let's start with the triple constraint. I'll take a minute of yours to define something. Now, I hope a lot of you people are already making notes. If not, please make notes because that would help you. So there was this gentleman called Harold Kurzner. So back in 1974, ladies and gentlemen, he gave a theorem, right? Now we call it the triple constraint theorem, the triple constraint. So what Harold Kurzner said in that? He said that the project works in a triangle. That's why it is called triple constraint, right? So that's triangle, right? Now, as per his definition of the triple constraint, he said that balancing your cost, scope, and time into the framework of quality meeting customer expectation. I'm going to say that again. Balancing your cost, scope, and time within the framework of quality meets customer expectation. So what Harold Kurzweil tried to explain was that there are three components that we need to take care about, just like the cost, time, and the scope. So these are the three components that we have to juggle with, so that we have to play a balancing act in order to achieve the fourth one. So why I'm juggling in those three? In order to achieve the fourth one, the quality. Why? Because out of these four things, The project manager needs to focus on the three things in order to achieve the fourth, because that's the only one which satisfies the customer. I hope you are able to connect to what I'm trying to elaborate here. So the quality is the thing which will satisfy a customer, right? A quality product, a quality service, or a quality result. Now, in order to achieve that quality product, service, or result, I need to balance my time. So how much is the time that I have in my hand? Say 6 months. So I have to deliver that quality product within 6 months, right? And I'm going to have $100,000 for that. And that's the only money that I would have. I cannot go back to my management and ask for more money. So what I have to do, I have to deliver the product within 6 months, within $100,000, and I need to, achieve these deliverables in order to achieve that product. All right. So those deliverables would become a part of the scope. So you have to manage these three areas, the time, cost, and scope area, in order to achieve the quality of the product, service, or result. So that's what the triple constraint is. Now, why I told you about the triple constraint, because you can see that this same triple constraint is your responsibility. So when it comes to the roles and responsibilities of the project manager, so we already talked about a couple of these things here, which was about the time and the budget. So you have the time in place, you have the cost in place. Now, similarly, if you talk about further, you're going to have the customer satisfaction, how the customer would be satisfied when he receives a quality product, service, or result. There you go, bingo. So that takes us back to the quality quotient here, right? And then you have the project risks, then you have the monitoring the development, creating those reports. All of these are your roles and responsibilities. So if you realize, that covers all the aspect of the triple constraint, because when it comes to monitoring the development and customer satisfaction, so the customer would only be satisfied when he receives a quality product, service, or result. Now, what this product should contain would be a part of your scope. So all in all the components that we talked about in triple constraint are your roles and responsibilities here. So you have to think about the planning, so how you're going to achieve those things. You're going to show your leadership, you're going to manage the time, you're going to manage the budget, you're going to create those reports so that you can communicate it with the people, with the stakeholders, so that they are informed at all point of times that what is happening in the project, what's the current status of the project. All right. You have to monitor all the risks that we have. You have to, create those mitigation plans. So all of these are going to be your roles and responsibilities in the project management in any project that you do. Moving on to the eligibility, the PMP eligibility criteria. Okay. Now, the PMP is not for the freshers. Now, this is what I'm going to start off with. The PMI believes that you at least need to have 3 years of experience. So if you're a graduate, all right, maybe an engineering graduate or a graduate in any discipline, right? It takes 3 years of work experience to be on a level wherein you will be able to understand the roles and responsibilities and the job of a project manager, right? So for the beginners, the PMI runs another program which is called CAPM, Certified Associate of Project Management, right? So for freshers or for somebody who has 1 year of experience or 2 years of experience, the PMI says that you should go and do the CAPM. So once you have 3 years or more than 3 years of experience, that's where you are eligible to give the PMP certification exam, right? Now, the other eligibility would be, so let's talk about that. The eligibility period for the PMP exam is for the duration which you can take the test is 1 year. Now, that 1 year duration is once you receive the authorization letter, right? From that, you need to give the certification exam within 1 year, right? Within this 1 year eligibility, you can attempt the exam 3 times in case you fail to clear it in the first attempt. So in 1 year, you would get 3 attempts, right? And okay, here's the story. Let me simplify that for you. So the first step would be to get the training. Training. Why training? Because this training will give you the 35 contact hours PDU. The PDU stands for Professional Development Units. So we'll come back and talk about PDUs in just a bit. But the first thing is that you need to get the training, and Edureka can always help you with the training. I do like more than 20 trainings here in Edureka in 1 year. So every month I take about 2 to 3 training classes on PMP, right? So we can help you with the training part. So once you get the training, the 35 contact hours, we call it the 35 contact hours training. So once you get the 35 contact hours, so that's going to be your first eligibility criteria. Then the second one is that once you have that, you have to apply for the examination. Now, for applying for the examination, as I said, you either need to have 3 years and 4,500 hours of experience in managing the projects. When I say managing the projects, may not be as a project manager, but you should have 4,500 hours of experience in directing and leading the project activities. All right. So if you're a graduate, you need 3 years or 4,500 hours of experience. If you're a high school graduate, right? So the PMI says that, there are a lot of people who don't go and complete their graduation degrees, right? And in US, I was reading that stats the other day. More than 48% of the people who pass their high schools, the senior high schools, don't go for the graduation. 48%, right? So that's almost 50-50, right? So what they would do, they'll go and do a vocational course or a professional, certification course, and they'll go and join the industry, which is again a good thing, right? So once you go and join the industry, and if you are not a graduate, right, you need to have 5 years and 7,500 hours, and you have to fulfill both of these things, mind you. So you should have 5 years as well and 7,500 hours as well. All right. Experience, 7,500 hours of experience in leading and managing the project task. So if you fulfill all of these criteria, just like you have 35 contact hours, and then you also have 3 years and 4,500 hours of experience, or you have 5 years and 7,500 hours of experience, you can apply for the exam. So you can fill the form online. I'll be coming to that process in just a bit, but this is just an overview here, right? So you're gonna apply or application. So you're gonna fill the application for the examination. Now, once you fill that application goes to the PMI, and the PMI checks that application, right? Now, 10% of those applications will definitely go into the audit because there's a random audit of 10%, right? So every 100 applications, 10 applications will go for the audit. All right. So if your application goes for the audit, then the PMI would give you a format, a template, and you need to get it filled, and you need to get it signed by all the, all the organizations that you have claimed in your application that you did projects for, and they're going to sign that, and you're going to, submit that back to the PMI. So your audit would be cleared. All right. Once your audit is cleared, the PMI sends you something which is called authorization letter. Now, once you receive the authorization letter, after that, this comes into the picture, right? The eligibility period for the PMP exam or the duration during which you can take the test is 1 year from the day of the receipt of the authorization letter, right? So for an example, if I receive the authorization letter on 1st of Feb 2021, so next 1 year, just like 31st of Jan 2022. So that's the time period that I have in my hand in order to go ahead and give the exam. Now, in a single year, I can attempt, so I would get only 3 attempts for the PMP exam in 1 year, right? So God forbid, if somebody fails for the first time, he can apply for the second time. And even if he fails for the second time, he can apply for the third time as well. So within that 1 year. So you cannot apply more than 3 times in a single year. Then you have to wait for another year, and then you have to resubmit the application that would again go for the checks, and the PMI will give you another authorization letter, and then you would have another 3 attempts for the next 1 year. So this is how it goes. So that's the PMP eligibility criteria. So 3 years, 4,500 hours of experience, or 5 years, 7,500 hours of experience. PMP 35 contact hours training. You apply for the certification, right? And then you receive the authorization within the next 1 year. You can give that exam. So I hope these things are clear to all of us. We're going to move on now to the certification cost. Again, a very, very important point is about, how much this is going to cost us, right? So what's going to be the cost of the PMP certification? The cost varies from a member to a non-member, and where you are giving a CBT, a computer-based exam, or you are giving a physical exam, the PBT, right? So based on these choices that you make, the examination cost is different. So let's start with the PMP certification fee slightly varies from country to country. Also, the PMI members are required to pay a lesser amount when compared to the non-PMI members. Okay, let me tell you something about the PMI's membership. I would recommend that, that's the first thing that you should do. So once you decide that I want to be a certified PMP, the first step should be to go and become a member of the PMI. The PMI membership fees is $129, ladies and gentlemen. So $129 is the fees for the membership. Now, once you become a member, so there are going to be a lot of these benefits that you're going to get if you become a member to the PMI. The first one would be that you will be able to download your own copy of the PMBOK. The PMBOK is the guide that we're going to follow for the PMP certification exam, right? And from the pattern change onwards, from the 2nd of Jan onwards, all the PMI members would also get a copy of the Agile practice guide, because that would again carry half of the questions from the process area. So the process area has 50% of the questions, 25% from the PMBOK, and another 25 from the Agile practice guide. So once you become a member, you will be able to download both of these documents, both of these books. That's going to be the first benefit. Otherwise, you need to purchase them from the market, right? The second benefit would be that the PMI would give you the access to the members only area. Now that members only area would have forums, that would have group discussions, that would have, a lot of these resources. So if you go and check the resource section, you're going to have the other ebooks and the sample questions, the exam questions. You can download a lot of these white papers, a lot of these case studies. You would have access to a lot of these resources which are online only for the members, right? So there are a lot of these benefits of becoming a PMI member. More than that, there would be a discount on the fees as well, right? So as you can see on the screen here, so we have the CBT, which is computer-based exam, or OPT. Now the OPT is again the exams that you can opt from the home, right? So because of this corona pandemic, the PMI is also giving you an option that you can actually give the examination from home, right? So it's going to be an invigilator who would be sitting with you. So you need to keep your webcam on, right? So he'll be sitting with you for the entire duration of the exam, and you can write the exam from home as well. For both of these, there would be a fees of $405 for the members. So if you are a PMI member, it's going to cost you about $405. And if you are a non-member, so if you are not a PMI member, then it's going to cost you $555. All right. So for the members, it's going to be $405. For a non-member, it's going to be $555. So there would be $150 extra that you have to pay if you are not a member of the PMI. Now, how much you paid for the membership? $129, right? And in return to that, you got all the resources, you got all the ebooks, you got all the case studies. Along with that, you got a discount of $150, which is more than the money that you actually paid for the membership, right? So you are still saving about $21 there, right? So that's the first benefit. So 405 against 555. When it comes to euros, 340 euros and 465 euros here. Then you have the BRLs, in which you have 1967 versus 3,370. And for the INR, the Indian currency, 23,459 for the members and 42,863 for the non-members. Now that may slightly vary looking at the currency exchange rates against the US dollars, right? So if that appreciates or depreciates, that would impact, the values in other currencies, right? So that's the examination fee. Now, if someone, God forbid, fails in the first attempt, then to take the re-exam, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the re-examination fee as well. The PMI provides a 1-year eligibility period for you to clear the examination. During this duration, you'll be allowed to take the examination 3 times. So as I said again, previously as well. So if you're appearing for a re-examination, right, and if you take a re-examination via the CBT or the OPT option, then you have to pay $275 if you are a member, and you have to pay $375 if you are a non-member. So it again saves you $100 here, right? So if you look at the membership, so there are benefits, right? So if you had to go and attempt the examination 2 times, that saves you $250 in that. And what was the fees for that? 129. So you can take a call, right? So I would suggest you to become a member. Absolutely, the first thing that you should do in order to, if you are aspiring to become a certified PMP. All right, that's the first thing that you should do. Okay, so that's the fee structure for the re-examination. Then finally, we come down to everyone who earns a PMP certification must actively maintain their certification through the participation in the CCR program and renewal of their certification every 3 years. Okay, now, before you ask me what the CCR is, so let me talk about what CCR is right here. The CCR stands for continual or continuous, right? Certification requirement. So continuous certification requirement, CCR. So what is continuous certification requirement? This is a philosophy, the philosophy that the PMI follows. Now, why do we have CCR? And just so you know that the continuous certification program or the continuous certification requirement is not only for the PMP certification program, but this is for any certification that you do from the PMI. For an example, the PMI ACP program, PMI ACP, that also have a CCR requirement. If you do CAPM, that has a CCR requirement. If you do the PMP, that has the CCR requirement. If you do risk management professional certification from the PMI, RMP, we call it the RMP, it has a CCR requirement. If you do PGMP, the program management professional certification from the PMI, that would again have the CCR. So what is CCR? The CCR, the continuous certification requirement, is that the PMI believes in a philosophy that the projects keeps changing. And because the projects are changing, the project management and the project manager should also change with time. For an example, so my dad was a project manager, right? So, and back in 70s, he used to work on projects, 70s, 80s, right? He retired in 1996. So before that, he was pretty actively involved in the project management. He was a project manager himself, right? So, but back in 70s and 80s, the tools and techniques that my dad was using for managing those projects, you know, are, honestly, they are not relevant in today's world and era. Just like, for an example, back in 80s, you know, nobody thought that one day we'll be doing a nanotechnology project. But now we do the nanotechnology project, right? Now that project will come with its own set of challenges. So the projects are so dynamic in nature now, right? The customer requirements, their expectations, they changes so fast that you have to adapt to a lot of these scenarios and a lot of these situations when you are in a live project, right? So you have to change your strategies, you have to change your modus operandi, you have to change your project plans, and you have to do all of that within that triple constraint theorem, because you still have to deliver the project on time, you have to deliver the project within the cost, within the scope, and you have to deliver the quality product service result to the customer, right? So what PMI suggests is that every 3 years you need to upgrade yourself to be eligible to be called as a certified PMP, right? Now, so if you are not able to manage the renewal, if you're not able to renew your certification every 3 years, then what you have to do is you have to resit in the examination. So after 3 years, your project management professional certification would be called as null and void, right? So you'll be called as an inactive PMP or non-active PMP, right? So the PMI will say, okay, so you are not an active person now. So if you want to be active again, you give the examination again, right? Now, how do we maintain that CCR program? How do we do that? We maintain that by achieving something which is called PDU. We call it Professional Development Units. I hope you guys are making notes here. Professional Development Units, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what is a PDU? What is Professional Development Unit? So I'm just giving you a rough estimate that 1 hour of study or 1 hour of learning is equals to 1 PDU. That's a rough estimate. I mean, precisely that is like 1.213 something hours per PDU, right? So 1.23 hours for a single PDU. But I'm just giving you a rough estimate so you can understand 1 hour of learning equals to 1 PDU. Now, how do we achieve those PDUs? We can get that in two different ways. The first part is training. Training. Sorry, training. So if you get trained, so if you get yourself trained on any area which is defined in the talent triangle of people, process, and business environment. So if you do any training in any of these three areas, just like when it comes to process or technical project management. So if you go ahead and do a Microsoft project training, now that training gives you 16 PDUs. If you go ahead and do a Primavera training, I'm talking about technical courses here, that gives you 23 PDUs, right? You do a leadership training program, leadership or conflict management or time management. So if you do the people related, the leadership related trainings, they also gives you the PDUs. If you do a business management training, right, that gives you the PDUs. So one way of achieving those PDUs is by getting yourself trained. So when you go into the training programs, at the end of the program, you're going to receive those PDUs. And then you have the second way. The second way is called giving back to the society. Back to society. So what is giving it back to the society? It is to become a trainer, just like me. So when I deliver a PMP training to you, you receive 35 contact hours certificate, right? That's what we talked about earlier. What I receive is 20 PDUs for every single PMP training that I deliver. For every single PMP training, I get 20 PDUs. And I said in a month, I do at least 3 trainings. So how many PDUs do I get in a single month? 60, right? So how many do I get in 10 months? 600, right? How many in a year? 720. How many in 3 years? Almost 2100 PDUs. In 3 years, 2100. Think about it. Do I ever have to wonder about how would I maintain my certification? The answer is no, but here's the trick. Here's the trick part here. That out of these 2100 PDUs that I receive in 1 year, how many can I use in order to renew my certificate? Because I need 60 PDUs in 3 years, right? So how many can I use from these 2100? Only 25. And rest of these are wasted. So I can use only 25 PDUs at max. So that's the maximum limit. So 25 PDUs by giving it back to the society. For the rest of the 35 PDUs, ladies and gentlemen, what Sachin Goswami have to do? Attend trainings. Right? I also have to attend trainings in order to achieve those 35 PDUs. So as a combination, I'm going to get 60. 35 from the training and 25 by giving it back to the society, right? So this is how the combination works, right? So you need to renew your certificate every 3 years by achieving 60 PDUs as a part of the CCR program. Now, the CCR program would also have some fees. Let's talk about that fees here. So the CCR certification or the renewal for the members would be only $60. That's not that big, right? So only $60, right? And for the non-members, it's going to be $150. So that's again more than double the amount that you have to pay if you're not a member. So as I said earlier, and I'm going to say this again, do the first thing as becoming the member of the PMI. So this should be your first target, right? Just go ahead, become a member, pay $129, and you'll not regret about your decision. Trust you me on this, because that would help you. And by the way, that $129 is for 1 year only. So you have to renew your membership every year by paying the same amount of money, by paying $129, right? So that's about the cost of the PMP certification, the re-examination, and the renewal, right? So things that you should know. Before that, we already talked about the eligibility criteria, the 3 years or 4,500 hours of experience, or 5 years or 7,500 hours of experience, along with your high school certification. And if you are a graduate, then you need only three years and 4,500 hours. And then you can go ahead and give the examination. Okay, so how PMP will help you in upgrade your career. Okay, big time. So as I said, that would not only give you the opportunities to grow in your professional life, but trust me, you will also grow as an individual, right? You will grow as a project manager. You would start using those practices not only for the projects but in your real life as well, right? So you would see the difference, right? So that's why I recommend that whether you go ahead and give the examination or do not give the examination, but I would definitely recommend you to attend the training part, because that training part will give you an insight about what are those tools and techniques that you should use, how you can manage the projects in a better way, right? And how you can be more successful, how can you successfully deliver the project on time, right? So all of these things would come under the training program. So I would highly recommend you to attend that training part, right? And then we'll talk about how it will upgrade you or help you upgrade your career. So let's talk about that as well. So it would give you greater employment opportunities, of course. So if you look at current scenarios, PMP certification is most of the times is a prerequisite for any project management job. I don't know if you have seen that, but if you go any of those job portals and you search project manager in the search criteria. So you're going to have all of these openings for the project managers. And when you read the job description, it says that should be a certified PMP. So you're going to see that a lot of times in those advertisements, right? So that's almost a prerequisite nowadays that if you want to be a project manager, you need to be a certified PMP. So that gives you greater employment opportunities, right? Then you have your international recognition. As I said, so this is recognized in more than 150 countries in the world, right? So very, very recognized. In fact, the most recognized project management certification in the world, right? It enhances your skill sets. There you go, bingo. So this is what I was talking about. That enhances your own skill sets. That makes you a better project manager, right? Work across the industries. I gave you one example of that. I've been working in IT, non-IT, telecom, infrastructure, construction, oil and gas, mechanical shutdown, you name it, all sort of projects, right? Build leadership qualities and edge over the non-PMP candidates. Now, that's obviously there. I mean, so if you are a certified PMP and against you there is another project manager who's a non-certified PMP, then the organization most of the times will give you the preference over the other person, right? So that's again another advantage that you have, and this is how it's going to help you in upgrading your career. So I would highly recommend you to go ahead for this course. If you're thinking about going into the domain of project management, just think about the PMP, so that's going to help you. Okay, so these were the employee benefits, all three on the left hand side. And then you had the personal benefits as well, just like enhanced skill sets and the leadership qualities. Now, these are some of the personal benefits as well that you're going to receive from that. Why organizations prefer the PMP certification, certified professionals, ladies and gentlemen? Because they need to make sure that their project sees the light. That's why, simple as that, right? Because you see, I don't know if you know about that, but okay, let me ask you a question here. So I was reading the Times Magazine, right? And I'm talking about back in 2014, right? And the Times in back in 2014, they published a white paper about, the successful projects worldwide, and it had the data of the previous year, 2013, right? So it took the data from 10,000 projects in almost all the verticals, and it had the percentage of the failed projects in 2013 and the successful projects in 2013, right? Now you'll be surprised to know that what was the success rate. The success rate, ladies and gentlemen, back in 2013 was 21%. 21%. So how many percent projects failed in 2013? 79% projects. Just think about it. So out of every 100 projects that we did in 2013, 79 were failed to achieve the product, service, or result. Maybe in terms of quality, maybe in terms of risk, maybe in terms of resources, in some of these parameters, right? Now, just think about it. So if we fail 79 projects out of 100, look at the economic hit that it gives not only to the organization, but to the country and to the entire society as well, right? And that's why you would see there was a trend, right? That every 3 years and 4 years, you're going to have something which is called recession. I don't know if you heard about that word, but that was one of the words that we used to hear every 3 4 years back in our time. So we had a recession in 2001, then we had a recession in 2004, then we had one in 2009. So every 3 4 years, you're going to have that recession, and that would hit millions of people in the world, right? A lot of people would lose their jobs, right? So they'll come under mortgage, and all of these things would happen. Why? Because there were a lot of projects which were failing. Now that's where you would see a trend as well. That so the PMI, started giving the PMP certificate back in 1975. So 1975, right? That was the first lot of certified PMPs, right? Now from 1975 to 2005, the number of people who appeared in examination were less than half of the number of people who appeared in the examination between 2005 and 2015. Why? So those 10 years, 2005 to 15, right? More people, more than double, right? The people got certified, and they were all certified PMPs. Why? What was the requirement? Because the organizations realized that, if a person who's managing our project, so if I'm giving my $1 million project in the hands of a person, then I need to trust him with his abilities that, he will finish the project on time, within the quality, within the scope, within the resources. He'll cater to all of those risks, and that's why the organization started prefer only the certified professionals for the job, right? And that's why that trend, 2005, 2015, more than double the people. They were more than the people from 1975 to 2005, right? So now that answers the question why the organization prefers the PMP certified professionals. Let's talk about that. The first point is customer satisfaction, improve work culture. Then you have the PMP certified candidates are reliable. So that's what I was talking about. So if I'm trusting you with my $1 million, right? How would I trust you? Only when I know that you are capable enough to manage my projects. And what gives you the reliability? The PMP certification gives you that reliability. That gives you that name that, okay, so if Sachin is a certified PMP, he should have that skill set that he can manage my project well. He can manage my project better, right? So that's one of the points. So that gives you more reliability. Increase success rate of the projects. So these are the benefits, and that's why the organization prefers PMP certified professional. And that's why there are more and more people who are going for the PMP certifications nowadays. Okay, so that was what we had for this webinar, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you were able to connect to a lot of things that we discussed in that. So my name is Sachin Goswami. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful, wonderful day ahead. Bye-bye.